to welcome everybody to our inaugural, maybe, Friends of Athletics Earn the W storytelling event. And I'm Janet Krevelin. I'm co-chair of Friends of Athletics, class of '84. Go Red.
It's a reunion year.
Reunion year. And so I just wanted to introduce a little, hopefully everybody got some M&Ms. And my quick little story, not to take the stage over anybody here, was at the end of every game, my parents came to basically every game. At the end of every game, they had M&Ms. So it's in memory or in honor of my parents that we all have M&Ms right now.
Yeah, and if you don't have one, just hold up your hands, I'll bring them around.
And then I want to do one thing, a little a priori, but...
For Latin, if you don't know Latin, you didn't graduate from Wellesley, right?
And thank Bernice and Sally, who have done... Thank you. Who basically have done all the work to make this happen, so thank you guys.
Yeah, well, all right, yeah, well, wait, Craig, before you take off, so I'm Bernice, and I'm the class of 1986.
And I'm Sally, and I am class of '86 as well.
All right, so this is the 50th year of Wellesley Athletics, as it says in the bulletin, and as you know, Krev has let everybody know. And so when you're 50, which we all are at least, you kind of know when something good has happened. Kind of like when the light bulb was invented, or the first person to put jam on toast. Krev came up with an idea to tell stories at reunion that if it goes well with this inaugural batch of people tonight, which we know it will, I have a sense that this is going to last for reunions well into the future. And we wanted to thank her for her innovation. Sally, do you want to say something? Yeah. Say it to the mic, yeah, please.
So, Krev, just a little thank you for everything that you do for Friends of Wellesley Athletics and for all of us here. And we couldn't have done this event without you, because Krev really was the brains behind the whole event. So.
Never been the brains of anything. All right, I'm leaving it to you.
Yeah. All right, so then one quick before you guys go. So before they disappear, we all played soccer together. And yeah. And our beloved coach, Suki McGraw, is here. Yeah. Suki came all the way from Oakland, California, so we better perform well tonight for her. And my short, it's not my reunion year or Sally's, but so when we get to tell our Earn the W, we played sports so early that our team didn't have the sweats. I swear our sweats were probably from like the bookstore. They didn't have your sport on, just said sed ministrare, non ministrare. And they could be used, because I think they were used for lacrosse and field hockey and everything else. But I'm glad to see that things have advanced much from that point. But that's just my little memory to tell you about.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Bernice.
Sure. All right, so tonight, you're going to hear from 13 former Wellesley alums and also some beloved coaches and faculty members. They're going to share their musings about athletics and being active, things that they remember from school that spurred them and stayed with them during their lives. Please give them a big, warm Wellesley welcome when they come. Miles has prepared this fabulous slideshow so that as each presenter tells her story, there'll be a picture that she submitted evidencing activity either in her life now or her life at school. Enjoy, and thank you for coming. We're going to begin with Jennifer Horton, who's the class of 1984.
Hi. I'm Jennifer Horton. I am from the class of '84, and I am not an athlete. The good news is that this story is mostly not about me, it's mostly about my mom. My mom, my sister, and I are all Wellesley alums, and we're all on the same reunion cycle. We always come to reunion together. We always come to reunion together until this year. Mom passed in June of 2021. So this is a tribute to my mother, Carolyn Drake Horton, from the fantastic class of '59. When I was 8, I couldn't ride my bike up the big hill near my house. My mom said she loved swim team as a kid. And so she put me on swim team to make me stronger. And before the end of the summer, I was able to ride my bike up the hill. I was a competitive swimmer for 9 years. My hair turned green. I smelled like chlorine. I did not love it. I am not like my mother. My mom spent all summer, every summer when she was a kid, at girls' camp. Swimming, boating, archery. She loved it. When I was 9 years old, she sent me to girls' camp for a week. I made a wicker basket, but I kind of missed home. I'm not like my mother. But Mom didn't give up. I was in Girl Scouts, and Mom was our Girl Scout leader for years. We went camping every fall and every spring. Mom wasn't much for the arts and crafts, so we hiked and we canoed and we went on overnight bike treks. If it was active, we were doing it. I kind of preferred singing around the campfire. When I was in 7th grade, my little brother was in soccer. And a friend of mine and I went to our moms and we said, how come we can't be in soccer? So Mom put together a girls' soccer team for me, and I played for a couple of years. My friends went on and played in high school and college. They were fantastic. I really wasn't much of a competitor, so I'm not like my mom. When I went to Wellesley, Mom said that she rode class crew. Yeah. And she really liked it. So I decided freshman year I would row class crew, and I did. Mom used to run down to be first in line at Tower Court for breakfast and then run down to the boathouse. I rolled out of bed in Freeman, no glasses, no contacts, kind of, trundled down to the boathouse. Not like my mother. Rowing was hard. But the lake is beautiful, and the smell, and I love the smell and feel of being just inches from the water. The best part was, without my glasses, the fall colors made a fantastic impressionist painting. Years later, when my eldest was getting serious about girls' basketball, my mom sent an article about girls' basketball in Iowa in the 1950s. And a note saying how much she would have loved to play basketball, but there was no girls' basketball in Minneapolis, Minnesota when she was little. And for the first time, I really thought about what it was like to be a sports-loving girl like my mom in a pre-Title IX world. She was on a girls' swim team. About half the time, they didn't have a place to practice. She loved girls' camp because it was one of the few places where a girl could be an athlete. She ended up running the waterfront, teaching girls to swim and canoe and sail. She was the example of what an athlete was to these girls. And in 1974, my mom didn't put together a girls' soccer team. My mom started the first girls' soccer league in Madison, Wisconsin. For me. My first year of high school was the first year that we had girls' soccer in the high schools, and my friends were the team. My junior year, Wisconsin had its very first girls' soccer state tournament. My mom helped make that happen. But I'm not like my mom. Mom stayed very active. She swam, played tennis, water skied, would go on bike vacations. At 79 years old, she was in the middle of a lake in Minnesota on a paddleboard for the very first time. Her grandkids are accomplished basketball and lacrosse players, swimmers, soccer players and ultimate frisbee players. My siblings coach soccer, play volleyball, swim. I walk my dog. Mom passed in June of 2021, and in the end, she wanted to go home. Not to our house in Madison, Wisconsin, but to the lakes in Minnesota. So in September of 2022, for that and many other reasons, I moved from Boise, Idaho, to the Twin Cities. St. Paul, not Minneapolis, I'm not like my mother. And in May of 2023, deciding that maybe I needed to get a little bit of exercise, I joined a dragon boating club. Now, if you don't know what dragon boating is, a dragon boat is like a really big canoe that holds 22 people. You got 10 people paddling on one side, 10 on the other, a steerer in the back, and a drummer in front, hollering, trying to keep everybody together. Mom would have loved it. Me? I like socializing with the quirky paddlers. I grumble on my way to practice. Mom would have smiled. I groan when we're doing the stretching exercises. Mom would have been leading group stretching. And I hurt and I think I'm crazy as I'm paddling out through the warm-up. But then, between the warm-up and the first set, I look around. The lake is beautiful. I love the feel and smell of being inches from the water. There are loons and dragonflies. And then the drummer hollers, paddles up, and I get ready. And Mom is with me. Maybe I'm a little bit like my mom. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Very, very inspiring and moving. And so now next, coming to the mic, is Julia Hardy, class of 2009.
So I'm Julia Hardy, I'm the class of 2009. We Wesleyans have a certain persistence about us. Whatever we decide to put our minds to, academic or extracurricular, we're determined to see it through to its end. We set our goals and we achieve them, regardless of how long or how much effort it takes. For some of us, such as myself, it takes a little longer than we expect to find our passions and learn to excel and persist at them. But invariably, when we find them, we hold fast to them, refine our skills, and aim higher and higher to push the limits of what we can achieve. During my time at Wellesley, I was never much of an athlete outside of the physical education requirement, but I'd had a focus and a determination and a persistence about me when I enrolled, and which I sharpened as I strived to achieve my academic goals, and which I would apply to my athletic career later in life. One of the highlights about attending Wellesley is always Marathon Monday. On that day, there is nothing like crowding the barricades to form the Scream Tunnel and to cheer for the participants as they pass by halfway through their adventure into Boston. Each year, I would excitedly join the other students, high-fiving and encouraging as many athletes as I could. And I didn't know it at the time, but this experience would eventually feed my determination to run a marathon someday for myself. In 2013, I began working out on a regular basis, and 2 years later, I was encouraged to start running after I said, I feel pretty good. Maybe I'll run a 5K in my lifetime. I had never appreciated running when I was younger. My fastest mile in high school was slower than what the presidential fitness test had recommended for me. But now I had a goal and I was determined to achieve it. And soon after I started running, I reached and then surpassed 5K distance, and a switch flipped in my brain. Oh, I thought, if I went this far the last time, how far can I go this time? By the time my first race came around that Thanksgiving, my long runs were 9 miles long. The race day atmosphere was palpable and infectious, and I began to love the runner's high that came with crossing the finish line. A couple of weekends later, I decided to go out and run for as long as I could, Not caring how fast I went or how far I went, I was just going to run until I couldn't anymore. And by the time I got home, I had run 12 and a half miles without thinking about it. Half marathon, I thought to myself. And I conquered that distance at my second ever road race the following May. It wasn't until late 2017 that I even considered running a full marathon. A colleague at my job at the time challenged me to run my first marathon by the end of 2018. I told him no promises, but I wouldn't put the thought from my mind either. And soon after this, I received word of a brand new local marathon which seemed tailor-made for a beginner. A short, flat, looped course, a $26 registration fee, and it was a Boston Marathon qualifier. This is too good to be true, I thought. And indeed, it was. As I registered for it without telling anyone, and rigidly trained for it, and then had to withdraw 2 weeks from the race due to a knee injury. Not knowing where to go from here, I lost some of my motivation and determination to run, and I wasn't sure I wanted to train to run a marathon ever again. This was when I learned that just like the academic atmosphere at Wellesley, the athletic atmosphere could be exceedingly competitive, and that the mental toll from not achieving your goals, or from not having goals in the first place, can be staggering. But I also learned that in both environments, if you find the right people, they will support you through your struggles and encourage you along the way. And in 2019, I joined my running club, the Merrimack Valley Striders, and since doing so, I have regained my determination and my love of running. And it was through my running club that I was able to have my first crack at a marathon, and that marathon was the big one, Boston. Christmas came early in 2021 when I was notified that I was one of 4 applicants chosen to represent the Striders at the 2022 Boston Marathon. I trained as diligently as I could, and on race day, I savored the screams as I ran past my alma mater and crossed the finish line that afternoon feeling like I had conquered the world. And that set off another spark in my brain to run all the Abbott World Marathon majors, 6 marathons which would earn me a star towards a special medal. London and New York came after Boston in 2022, Berlin and Chicago came 2 weeks apart in 2023, and Tokyo came earlier this year. Through persistence in my training and determination to see my goal to its conclusion, I earned my 6-star medal. Now that I've run the 6 majors, marathons are by no means off the table, but I am now aiming towards triathlons, which involve swimming, cycling, and running one after the other, an upgrade of sorts. While I've only just started, I'm already setting lofty goals for myself to achieve someday. Who knows what I'll do next? And to me, earning the W means having goals and achieving them through persistence and determination. That was true at Wellesley, and it is still true today in my athletic career. The W in that phrase not only stands for Wellesley, it also stands for win. We earned our places at Wellesley through our persistence in our academic endeavors, and we earn our wins whenever we persist and achieve our goals, no matter how lofty or down-to-earth they are. So whatever you're after in life, whatever your goals point you towards, go for it. Keep pushing. Aim high, and then aim higher. Be determined to see your goal's achievement and be persistent in the effort, and I assure you, you will have everything you need to earn your W. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Julia. Not only was that inspiring and encouraging, but I think if you're like me, there was a little implicit invitation in there, a challenge that if you have ever cheered on the runners in the Boston Marathon, you better be registering for a 5K in your hometown at some point soon. Thank you very much, Julia, again. All right, to continue these inspiring stories, we're going to welcome Amy Mayer to the mic.
Hi, I am from the Purple Class of 1994, here for our 30th reunion. And Jennifer stole my lead, but I'm going to borrow it back because I also don't consider myself an athlete, because when I think athlete, I think people who thrived on organized teams, people who run marathons and train constantly for them, those people who go climb mountains on the weekends just because they can. In other words, not me. But I have always been active, even or perhaps especially at Wellesley. And actually, I did try out for the field hockey team my first year, which, when I think back to how far behind all those other runners are, it was kind of amazing. I hadn't played my junior or senior year in high school, so it was really no surprise when I was one of 2 people who got cut from the team. But like, who does that? Cuts just 2 people from a team. And you know, I had made some sacrifices to try out. Like, I missed that iconic Boston scavenger hunt, which I'm pretty sure some of my classmates are still talking about. And I plunked down some real money on a new pair of cleats. But also, I made my first college friend. Hi, Sam. She made the team. And I got some exercise, which may or may not have contributed to me continuing to run at my own pace, mostly around the lake. But while I was on campus, I also tried racquetball, fencing, rowing, canoeing, and even a bike repair workshop, all those fun things that other people found to be pesky PE requirements, but I thought they were great because it was a break from the academics. Most of them were outside. Some of them were useful, like lifelong skills like changing a flat tire. The racquetball, not so much. And my first job on campus was as a lifeguard at the pool. Don't get any ideas, I was never on a swim team. And at the boathouse. And the boathouse was especially great because we would just sit on the dock in the sun in the afternoon, and there'd be a handful of sailboats on the water, and we'd take an occasional spin in the launch, and college and summer camp converged. And later, I would swim and swim and swim in that beautiful pool where those enormous windows made plain the changing of the seasons. I would trudge across campus from Stone Hall with a friend of mine. She taught me to do breaststroke flip turns, and when my family migrated west to California a few years ago, we chose to live in the same town as her. We swam together yesterday. I have lived in a lot of places since I graduated, and for many years, I just had sporadic contact with my college friends. But I was becoming an engaged alum. I mean, I interviewed applicants when that was still a thing, and I've written for the magazine. And then came the Facebook groups. And my life as an alum exploded into a million different directions. There were people you would see, names you would see in the foodies group, and then in the parenting group, and then in another group, and then you come to reunion, and you see a name on a badge, and you realize, oh, we were in the same class. So everything about social media is a narrative about divisiveness and how it tears people apart. But for me, the Wellesley groups on Facebook have brought me closer to so many in this community, so many of you, people who are proud of the fact that we stand up for each other, whether it's somebody that we know in real life or somebody we only know through the Facebook groups. It's something that we've always valued about this network that we are. And also, I've come around to the fact that old school networking is pretty phenomenal among our community. A couple of years ago, my wife, who is not a Wellesley alum, was telling me about a collaborator she was working with. And this scientist at Columbia University, who is in her 90s, still goes to work a few hours a week. And as I was hearing more about her, I thought, I bet you went to Wellesley. Class of 1954. Many years ago, when my son was 6, he announced that he wanted to learn to snowboard. And so, for spring break, I called up my favorite math teacher, as one does, and Margaret Mathis, class of 49, who I'm pretty sure is here on campus somewhere, if not in this room, said, sure, come on up. She was living at the base of a ski mountain in Maine. I got a Christmas card from her just last year when she said she's finally given up her skis. But not hiking, because athlete and role model. When I called my mom and told her that I hadn't made the field hockey team, she said, well, you didn't really expect to, did you? And honestly, no. I kind of knew I probably wasn't going to make the team, but what I mistook for longing to be on a team was actually just a desire to belong, which is what I found at Wellesley. It may have taken me a few more decades to figure out that I could be an athlete too. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you for sharing those delightful musings. And like, who knew we had a bicycle repair workshop on campus? I mean, when she was telling me the story, I was in school in the 80s, and Nan rode her bicycle everywhere. And I think you guys kept that bicycle going because it never broke down in the 4 years we were here. All right, our next storyteller is going to be Karen Clegg from the class of 1974. Take it away, Karen.
Good evening. I am Karen Clegg, class of 1974, and I'm going to tell you a story about mistaken identity. When I was in high school, my father brought home 2 wooden tennis rackets that one of his customers gave him. He was a house painter, and he often came home with discarded items from his customers, such as the upright piano he brought home, and no one played except occasionally chopsticks. My sister and I wanted to learn to play tennis, but we couldn't afford to pay a teacher, so we decided that we would teach ourselves. We went to the tennis courts located near our high school, watched some of the people play, and thought, oh, we got that. Okay, sorry.
Closer, there you go.
So we went out on the court and we started swinging the rackets, except we looked like we were swatting flies. The balls were going over the fence, onto cars, onto the sidewalk, into other people's courts, or sometimes we totally missed. So after a short while, the other tennis players told us we needed to leave the court. So we left, and we never went back, and we never taught ourselves to play. But about 2 years later, when I came to Wellesley, I decided to take tennis as one of the courses to fulfill the physical education requirement. And the tennis coach told me to always keep my eyes on the ball and to move my feet. And she said, remember KISS, keep it simple. So, but I didn't pursue tennis after that because the pressure of the academic side was too heavy, so I didn't pick up a tennis racket. Until after law school, and after getting a job, and sitting at a desk all day, and gaining weight, I realized I needed to do some exercise. So I chose tennis, and I joined a tennis club, and I became a pretty good player. And I loved tennis so much that I often went straight to the tennis court after work, before going home. And I even went to Wimbledon to watch the matches. And while I was in England, a cab driver asked me, well, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm going to Wimbledon. But he took that to mean that I was actually playing. So I quickly disabused him of that notion. And he was very disappointed because he was hoping to get an autograph. So on my way home, I had to go through customs in New York, and the custom official said to me, the first question was, do you play basketball? And I said, well, why would you ask me a question like that? Well, because you're very tall, and it just so happens that a women's professional basketball team had just gone through, and she thought I was a straggler. True story, couldn't make it up. And I said, no, never played, don't want to play. Love the game, but I don't know how to play. And then, let's see what happened. I was in the grocery store one day, and a man approached me and offered me a scholarship to play basketball. But I said, well, you're about 4 years too late. I already have a degree. In fact, I also have a law degree. And I'm also a lawyer. I have a license. So he walked away scratching his head. So, I complained to my friends about how I hated the fact that complete strangers would ask me, or always comment on my height, or do you play basketball? And they said, hey, I wish somebody would mistake me for, a professional athlete or a collegiate level athlete. Why don't you just say yes and, make it fun? So one day I had to take my car to the dealer, and take the shuttle to the metro. And the shuttle driver said to me, "Have you ever played basketball?" I said, "Oh, yeah, funny you should ask." I said, "In fact, I played professionally in Italy for 3 years. Went all over Europe, learned to speak Italian." And he was really happy, and he wanted my autograph, so I said, I scribbled something, couldn't really read it, but he was just as happy as he could be. So, in sum, I played a lot of tennis. I don't play anymore. I never played basketball. But now, if you were to ask me, well, what do you play? I'll tell you, I box. And I fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, very much. I'd like your autograph, I'll tell you that. I am just blown away. I gave an offer. Krev asked if I would coach some of the speakers because I've done some public speaking, and so about 9 of the 13 people you're hearing from tonight, we set up Zooms or telephone calls, and they had a chance to practice and get some pointers, but they were all in excellent shape, and so I felt that it was just a very minor thing to do. But I hadn't heard Karen's story. I saw her on the Zoom when she initially said she was going to participate. But that's amazing. That story just knocks me out, so thank you.
Yeah, most of it's true.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. All right. You guys have been a great audience. Let's keep it going. We're going to have come to the mic or sit in her chair, however her preference, Miss Lauren Madoff from the class of 2004.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is not an athletic picture, but this is me and my roommate from about 2001, I think, and she's in the audience here tonight. So when I arrived at Wellesley in the fall of 2000, I knew 2 things. One was that I wanted to be a doctor. I had decided back in elementary school that I was going to be a pediatrician when I grew up, and I brought that dream with me to Wellesley. The second thing that I knew was that I wanted to join crew. I'd always been an athlete. I played tennis in middle school and early high school, and then I started doing martial arts through the rest of high school. And I was 1 belt away from getting my black belt when Wellesley called. So I said I thought it was time for a change, and I thought what could be more collegiate than rowing crew in Boston? So that's what I decided to do. And I wanted to row. So I went to the novice crew meeting, I think the second week of school, and Joan, who was coach at the time, took one look at me and said, "Do you want to go straight to varsity?" As a coxswain. And that wasn't really my intention, but then I saw some of the the varsity rowers walking by in their jackets, and I was like, if I go straight to varsity, I can get a jacket. So I joined the varsity crew as a novice coxswain. I learned the ropes from my coaches and my teammates. I'm sure they were pretty exasperated with me at times, especially in the beginning. But over time, I started to learn how to conduct the drills, how to navigate the boat, and how to steer throughout the Charles River, which is kind of like driving west on the Mass Pike at 5 p.m. on Friday sometimes. So it's a little scary. But I managed. So a couple months in, during one early morning practice, I had conducted our usual drills. I asked the rowers to try digging in more with their heels. I said, try driving through with your legs, and try giving me more power. At the end of one of these practices, after we'd put the boat away, my foreseat came up to me. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the setup of a boat, these boats had 8 women in them, and the middle of the boat was called the powerhouse of the boat. So these were the biggest rowers on the team. So my foreseat, who is about 6 feet tall and very strong, pulled me aside, and she said in this exact voice, "Lauren, Please stop telling me to try. I am trying. So that statement was a revelation for me. It completely changed how I coached the team. I realized that I was the brain of the boat and they were the muscle. They didn't want to think about what to do. That was my job. I took try out of my vocabulary and just told the team to do what I wanted them to do. We became one body, one boat, and we grew stronger and faster together. We started our fall season not winning any races. By the end of our spring season, we qualified for nationals. So at the time, there was some rule that the college had that athletes could not compete during reading period, and nationals fell during reading period. So that year, we actually did not get to go to nationals. But after that year, the college changed that rule, and I've heard that ever since then, the Blue Crew has been crushing nationals. I only did one more season on Crew. Crew has a fall and a spring season, and I only did the fall season of my sophomore year when I left the team. I decided I want to get back into martial arts, so I spent the next 2.5 years at Wellesley taking the shuttle back and forth to MIT several times a week to join their Taekwondo club. I continued in martial arts for one more year after Wellesley when I worked in a lab in Chicago. And then the following year, I started medical school. I found medical school to be such an immersive experience that I had little time for anything else. And unfortunately, I still have yet to get my black belt. But that's the plan. But the lessons I learned through athletics at Wellesley still stick with me to this day. I learned how powerful my mind is and what I could accomplish when I set my sights on something. Much like taking one stroke at a time to finish a race, I had to take one step at a time to reach my goals. I might not have made it to nationals, but I did become a doctor. I became a pediatrician. And then in typical Wellesley fashion, I went back for more training and became a pediatric anesthesiologist. So as part of my job as an anesthesiologist, I work in our pre-op clinic. And I do this a couple times a month. It's a place where we see kids in preparation for surgery and just make sure that they're totally optimized and ready to go. Part of this job is seeing patients, and another part is getting inundated with emails from our fabulous pre-op nurses who are seeing every patient coming through the ORs and asking me questions. So one day in particular, I just kept getting, I'd answer one email and 5 more would come in. And I was responding to this one nurse with things like, I think we need an echocardiogram, or I don't think this patient needs labs. And Gretchen responded to me and she said, every time you respond, I think, I'm not really sure if you're convinced it's the right thing to do. And so I got up from my desk. I walked halfway across the wing of the wing of the hospital to Gretchen's office, and I said, Gretchen, I've got to tell you this story about Crew. And now, whenever I respond to her emails or any of the nurses' emails, I don't tell them what I think we should do. I just tell them what we should do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lauren. Again, are you getting the theme that these stories are just incredibly powerful, inspirational, and, Krev, like with any innovation, the first time you experience it, you say, well, why weren't we doing this all along? This is just such an enjoyable part of Reunion to hear you each claim your stories here. And in that vein, it's my honor and my privilege to announce our next speaker, who is somebody I admire tremendously, Connie Bauman, faculty emerita.
Well, I'm in professorial mood, so I have to get up here. I feel like I'm giving a lecture. So they say
Just a little bit.
the best part of Wellesley is being an alum. So welcome home.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. Imagine that you are playing an intense competitive overtime game against Smith College when all of a sudden you feel a sharp stabbing pain in your knee and you fall to the ground, realizing that there is no one competent enough to care for that injury at that point in time. Well, that was the reality until 1979, when the physical education department posted a job position for a half-time athletic trainer, half-time teacher, half-time athletic trainer. I was at the athletic training conference in New Orleans, and I saw the job posting, and I thought, I want to learn more, so I signed up for an interview. The first question I was asked from the chair and co-chair was, tell us what you know about the college. To which I replied, well, actually, I've never heard of Wesley College. They looked at each other in unison and said, no, it's Wellesley College. To which I replied, well, I've never heard of Wellesley College. But I have heard of Harvard. Not the best way to begin an interview. So you can imagine my surprise. In a week later, I got a phone call from the chair saying I was selected as one of 3 finalists and invited to campus. So I was surprised, elated, and I went to the library to look in the college catalog, all about Wellesley, so I was more prepared. When I got to the interview, the first thing they showed me was the athletic training facility, which was a 14 by 8 rectangular empty closet in the basement of the rec building. And they said, well, what would you like to furnish it with? I looked at the space again, and I said, well, an ice machine, a taping table, and a wastebasket. They said, oh, we can accommodate that. So I knew then, if I got the job, I had my work cut out for me, literally from the ground up. So you can imagine my surprise when 2 weeks later, I received a call saying I was selected as Wellesley's first athletic trainer. I knew I needed more support. I needed more hands to meet athletes' needs. So I thought, okay, I'm going to offer a PE class in sports medicine. And in that way, they have to have a requirement, right? And that way get students interested in the medical professions, and they can become my hands. And that was going well. The class filled until 2 weeks into the class, and I gave them homework. And they said, you cannot give homework in a PE class. It is just not done. So plan A did not work. Plan B, I have to develop an academic class where I can give homework, lots of it. So I talked to my chair about it. She's supportive. She says, you need to go over to the science faculty and engage them, strategically engage them in support of you, because they will vote against this course in academic council if you don't have their approval. So I go over to the science faculty, and the biology department in particular is interested because this human anatomy course would normally fall under them. And they didn't have one. They didn't have a human anatomy course, and they had a pre-med major. I didn't get that. So here was the deal. We will approve your course, provided that you don't ask for C distribution course or lab credit. It has to stand as an elective. Okay. I'll take the deal, but I didn't feel good about it. I felt less than, inferior, not smart enough. I didn't have a PhD. All components of the imposter syndrome. And I thought, okay, am I going to get enough students to fill an elective, especially offered at 8:30 in the morning? Well, the class filled the first year with all seniors. I had not anticipated that. I still didn't have my hands to help me. So I learned to limit the number of seniors to 4. And I got underclasswomen that I could train. And luckily, at 8:30 in the morning, who do you think I got? Rowers and swimmers, right? They're up at the crack of dawn. They came to my class wide-eyed. So I thought, okay, here we have it. I'm going to be okay in this class. But there was a professor, a chemistry professor, who walked in the first day of class. I was already feeling sort of imposter syndrome, and she came up and she said, I want to audit the class. I immediately thought she was a plant, and she was going to go back to the science faculty and say the class was not rigorous enough for academic credit. So I was nervous, but she came every time, took notes. A month later, she invited me to lunch. I thought, here it comes. Here it comes. Imagine my surprise when she says, I'm loving this course, and I'm learning a lot about my own injuries. She was an avid runner. And that's what I needed to hear. I needed to hear her approval. And that gave me the confidence to build that course into something more. So I included an internship in the course, and students came down to the athletic training room. After the course was over, I hired them through student employment. They received jobs, and they were student athletic training aides, and they were my team. They were my eyes, my hands, my ears, and they were my team. So I finally had my hands. I decided that I needed to have a more culminating experiential lab. So I partnered with Harvard. I always knew I'd get to Harvard. And they said yes. So at the end of class, we applied all of our anatomy and used their cadavers, state of the art. That proved to be one of the best learning experiences for anyone that was going in the medical professions. And those alums contacted me their first year of medical school because they aced the anatomy exam and the cadaver exam. And I felt really good about that. I wanted to add another layer, and one of the students said at the end of the class, what's the next course we take? I said, well, there is no next course, but there is an opportunity for you to teach this course to underrepresented middle school girls enrolled in Science Club for Girls. And I will help you. And they designed a curriculum. They received independent academic credit through the sciences, so they got an academic credit. They got a budget, and it was a pleasure for me to see them teach the course I taught them. And the students said, is this science? I said, yeah, this is science. And they loved learning how to tape an ankle. That program grew. Those students then presented in the Tanner and Ruman conferences and got a lot of visibility for the program. It was a win-win. One of my students got she wrote about it in her admission to graduate school about that experience and being a co-founder of this, what we called Slam Dunk. So this program was called Science, Learning, and Mentoring, Discovering and Understanding New Knowledge. And we had shirts and basketball hoop and slam dunk. And it was super successful. They were teachers as well as mentors. And it was a great program. So I was proud of that. One of my students in the class wanted to teach it for Breakthrough program in Cambridge. And it was a job, and she wanted to teach. They said, we want a science course. I'll teach sports med. And so we were in contact. I went and visited her. And I can remember her stories. They were wonderful. She was very creative. And she was looking for Carlos, and he wasn't there one day. And he came back. He came the next day, and she said, "Where were you, Carlos? I missed you." "Well, I fell down and I hurt my calcaneus." And she knew she was making a difference then, right? She knew. I was on this pre-med committee for 20 years, and that was an opportunity for me to write for my students, especially who took my course and did more with my course. And so I had the pleasure of writing for a lot of physicians that are out there. And, I had one alum that I said, our pre-meds need more clinical experience. They got all kinds of research, but they're weak in clinical experience. So I called upon Dr. Jody Larson, sitting here, and I said, you got to help me out. You got to give me some clinical internships at Newton Wellesley Hospital. We got to get there, and she provided it. She stepped up every time I called on her. And Janet Krevlin, they both came to my class, and they spoke to the students about their career path, which was not linear, never is, but the students think they have to graduate and know exactly what they're doing. And they shared their life stories. We should ask them about them. They were very creative. But it reassured our students that, okay, I don't have to know right away. And I always called on alums to come back into class and share with the students. I want to, I won the Padansky Prize.
Yes.
And it was one of my proudest moments at Wellesley. I never thought I would win that coveted prize. It's like an Academy Award at Wellesley. And I realized that it's a team prize. For me, especially, it was a team prize. And I want to acknowledge publicly my team that helped me get this award, because without them, it wouldn't have happened. So, Sonia Hicks, the chemistry professor that I thought was a plant, please stand up. She became my mentor and very good friend. The ATA, Student Athletic Trainers, my team, you're here, stand up. The student who taught at Breakthrough and Carlos injured calcaneus, Allison Broadwater, stand up. And Jody Larson and Janet Krevlin came to my class multiple times. Please stand up and be recognized. The administrative staff, at 8:30 in the morning, a lot can go wrong. You never know who's going to be in the classroom the night before and mess up your computer, and the Xerox machine doesn't work. Martha Dietrich and Tina Ferdin were always there. Please stand up. And and my department chairs, starting with Linda Vaughn, who hired me when I never heard of Wesley College, and Bridget Belgivini, the last, who stand up. So after 38 years, I decided to graduate. I'm the class of 2018. And I had a wonderful career here. I was not the same person leaving Wellesley as I was coming in, having never heard of Wellesley College. I had a lot of autonomy. I had a tremendous amount of support. I grew professionally and personally. And this place is special. Coming home is very special. And I guess I just want to say thank you to my students that made me a better teacher and a good mentor, and I'm in touch with you still. And, you know, I love Wellesley, and go blue.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Connie. That was fabulous. So I can see I'm not the only admirer of Connie that's in the house tonight. You've heard a few people say they're not athletes, but everybody up here is a player. Game recognizes game. So the next player coming to the mic is Dr. Megan Anderson, class of 1994.
Okay. Hi, Megan Anderson, Purple class of 1994. Why do you want to be an orthopedic surgeon? Emphasis on you. It's a question I get asked a lot as a woman in a very male-dominated specialty. And to me, it wasn't so much that question, so much as how are you going to succeed at being an orthopedic surgeon? And I really fell back, I feel like a lot, to my some skills I learned being a Wellesley College soccer player, skills of being organized, skills of being a leader, and learning how to deal with defeat. So I'll go back. Why do you want to be an orthopedic surgeon? You know, I just like anybody else who gets into orthopedics, it's early exposure. My brother had a knee injury. My dad's an engineer. I like fixing things. I like putting things back together. And to be able to sort of turn the body into a physics project, it was just like, aha, this is what I want to do. So I always knew that's what I wanted to do. It was a no-brainer. When I went into med school, though, I found like a little bit of something was missing from that, like the bone broke me fix was just, it was great, but maybe there was something more. I missed some of the figuring things out to some extent, the puzzle. And then I got exposed to the world of orthopedic tumor surgery. And this is a combination of the medicine, the science, the figuring out the problem, working with other colleagues, and that was another aha moment. This is what I want to do. So how are you going to succeed? How are you going to do this? So I really feel like it does harken back, and I draw a lot on some skills I learned as a Wellesley College athlete, and definitely being organized is a huge one. Getting to all those labs for all the pre-med requisites, but also making sure that I was at every practice and every game, being responsible and being really prepared was really important at being an athlete at Wellesley. You're expected to excel academically. That was number one, for sure. And athletics were on the side, but you were also expected to show up and do your best for your teammates, too. And I feel like that's something that's really important as a leader in the operating room and as a surgeon. And you have a responsibility to be unbelievably organized, be prepared, and show up to the operating room ready to go and take care of your patients. So that I carry with me every day. The second point was how to be a leader. We at Wellesley learn to be leaders, but there's different types of leaders. And I think what I really learned from Coach Nancy, especially, was how to be a leader that takes in the opinions of everybody. Make sure that everybody's voice is heard, assimilates it into a cogent, clear plan with a direction, a way to execute the plan, and then helps everybody to make it happen. That's what Coach Nancy did for our team, and that's what I try to do when I show up to the operating room. And I think that everybody is important. The bed can't I can't do an operation if the bed doesn't function. So everybody who puts the bed together, who cleans the floor, who prepares the instruments, that they're just as important as everybody else. And getting everybody on board with the plan, being prepared, and leading that team forward, I think is something that's really important that I learned here. And then the third thing is dealing with defeat. We didn't win every single game. And that's on a team level, and I wasn't a starter for a lot of the games. And so on a personal level, dealing with some defeat. And what I learned here, and probably the Wellesley way, is that we share those moments, and we learn to do it as a group, and it makes it less painful. It makes it so you can carry on and continue to excel at whatever the task may be. So I'm an orthopedic tumor surgeon, and my focus is on kids, and I take care of kids with benign and malignant tumors. And we don't win every game. We sometimes lose patients, but I'm using the word "we" on purpose because I do it as a team. Then the team gets together, and we find another way. And just this past 5 years, we've now developed drugs that can make it so I don't even have to operate on these kids and cure cancer with targeted therapies and the way forward. So that teamwork of collaboration and moving forward, the teamwork of also then sharing a patient loss together and letting ourselves experience that shared commiseration, but then being able to pull each other up and move forward is also something that I learned being a Wellesley College athlete. So I guess when people ask me, why did you want to be an orthopedic surgeon? I can just say I'm a Wellesley College athlete alum who wanted to cure cancer.
Thanks very much, Megan. And baked into your story are a lot of life lessons that we can all benefit from hearing. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out, her coach is Nancy Slocum, who is in the picture. And Nancy Slocum is an elite soccer player. I was astonished when I heard that she was named to be coach after my coach. And she's here. And Nancy, could you stand for... Yeah, it's gratifying to be able to tell your coach their impact on your life, and so that she's here, I wanted to point that out. So we're going to keep this going, and I don't believe Hannah Scholler is here. Sally? No? Okay, all right. So we're going to look at her slides that Miles put together, because he worked hard. Oh, well, just imagine. Remember what Connie said? Imagine Hannah Scholler was up here doing whatever she was doing. Okay. Then we're going to bring Ann Jones, class of 1984.
I am a fencer. I fenced in high school. I chose Wellesley over some of the other seven sisters because I could continue to fence. A great experience. But that's not my story. After I graduated, I stopped fencing for about 20 years. Then one day, I am sitting in the kitchen, my husband, our seventh grader. Some guy calls me. He's the father of a student at Marion Catholic High School in Chicago Heights, Illinois. They're starting a fencing team. He had heard from someone who's a mutual friend that I knew how to fence. He also knew who I was because he was in Boy Scouts with my husband. Welcome to small town life in Illinois. But why not? Come work out with the team. So I did. Great time, just remembering things with people who were learning things for the first time. I was just that much ahead of them that we all had a great time. But what I remember most about that very first practice was the end. Kids are milling around in the gym lobby waiting to be picked up. And there's one of the freshman girls in the corner, dueling herself with a pair of plastic lightsabers. I was home. Just loved being with those kids, I volunteered with the team. I came to some of the practices, some of the competitions the first year. The second year, I came to every practice. I organized the practices. I was at every competition. You guys know the story. We've all been there. At the end of that year, that school year, they were looking for a librarian, which is the other thing that I do. I trained to be an academic research librarian. I did not train to be a school librarian at all. But the head coach of the fencing program was Sister Dorothy Marie, and if you had Sister Dorothy Marie's recommendation, that's all you needed. Woman's a powerhouse, just amazing. So I came to work at Marion. Eventually, Sister Dorothy left. I became the head coach. Eventually, they decided, instead of a club sport, to make us a varsity sport. Next year will be our 20th season. And that's the team and championships from this past year. But that's not my story either. Okay? Dial it back about 5 years after I started working with the team. I'm here for a reunion, chatting with our friend Connie. And Connie Bauman says to me, "Oh, you fence? You coach fencing in Illinois? Does Maine West High School have a fencing team?" Wait, what? I mean, yes, but what? Okay, you have a slight idea of why now. Connie filled in a little bit of that for us. But turns out she got her bachelor's degree at Illinois State University. She did her student teaching at Maine West. And her mentor there was a woman named Karen Kenyon. Karen taught Connie how to fence so she could teach fencing in the gym class to help with the fencing program. And she contends to this day that one of the reasons she got that job was because she could teach fencing in gym classes here. Well, the name Karen Kenyon was actually very familiar to me. Coach Kenyon was one of the founding coaches in the conference where my team competes. And as the only female coach in that group, the Sportsmanship Award for the girls is named after her. Young lady with the flowers in the center, Francesca Bernarte, this year's winner. But every year, when we give the Karen Kenyon Award, I walk up to that athlete afterwards and I tell her about my connection to Karen Kenyon. That, my friends, is how you win the W.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much, Ann. I think that's a definition of small world. All right, so our next speaker, there are just rock stars that go by one name, Cher, Madonna, Tina. So we're going to bring you Abby.
You'll have to be patient because I'm going to read. I have many stories, many memories I carry with me from my days coaching at Wellesley. I had the honor of working with some of the most wonderful young women, smart and funny, challenging and curious, enthusiastic and passionate, filled with a zest for life. Two stories, however, stand out in my mind. The first was terrifying, and whenever I think of it, I am so grateful to the young women involved for their courage and trust in the face of possible catastrophe. Rowing is not a contact sport. It does not have a lot of injury, generally, but it is a sport that has danger inherent in being on the water, the variability of the weather, possible collisions, power boats, bridge abutments, and all manner of flotsam and jetsam. So rowers learn early that safety is paramount and that it is essential they pay attention and obey commands. For the first several years I coached at Wellesley, we rented rack space for our boats at the BU Boathouse. The boathouse sits between the river and Memorial Drive. On the other side of Memorial Drive is a parking lot, the only place we could park our boat trailer when we were loading and unloading boats before and after races. We had raced that weekend and had come down early Monday morning, as usual, to take the boats from the trailer, rig them, run practice, put the boats away in the boathouse, and return to campus. It was almost full light as we carried the boats across Memorial Drive down the hill to the boathouse. As one of the 62-foot-long 8s was partway across the road, a small pickup truck with a rack turned onto Mem Drive and came towards us, no headlights on and giving no sign of slowing. There was no time to get the kids and the boat off the road in time. I was horror-struck at the possibility that one or more of the kids might get hit, but I couldn't have them drop the boat. If the truck hit the boat, it would have become a weapon, potentially killing and certainly badly injuring rowers and the truck driver. The truck was not slowing down, so I yelled, "Up, over heads, ready, up." The rowers pressed the boat up over their heads. The truck drove under the boat, never slowing or stopping. After a stunned pause, I gave the command for the rowers to shoulder the boat, and we took it the rest of the way to the dock. When we rolled it over, there were 2 marks on each side of the gunnels where the truck's rack had nicked the paint off. A chillingly narrow escape. We were all pretty badly shaken, and when the shock wore off, we realized how close we had come to disaster. The fact that each of those young women was willing to stand her ground, not panic, not drop the boat and run, saved her life and the lives of her teammates. Fortunately, the next year we moved to a much safer boathouse situation. But this incident still gives me gray hair. The second story is one of the best examples of teamwork I know. We were racing at Columbia, whose boathouse is in the middle of New York City. Not an easy place to maneuver a trailer with those 62-foot-long boats. The one-way street the boathouse is located on has an entrance that is angled like this. And we got in, unloaded, rigged the boats, had the races, de-rigged the boats, loaded the trailer, the kids climbed on the bus, and we headed out. But unfortunately, the angle of the entrance did not allow the trailer to get out of the parking lot. So I identified the impediment across the way, parked the trailer as far out into the street as I could to block traffic, and went back to the bus and rounded up the team and took them across the street. I had the team surround the car, blocking the trailer's exit, then told them to get hands on the little Honda and issued commands, ready up. They picked up the car, over to the sidewalk, they moved it off the street, ready down, and they set it down. Then I got in the truck, I pulled the trailer all the way out, the team ringed the Honda, and I yelled, hands on, ready up, down to the street and down, and the little car was right back where the driver had left it. We all cheered, and the team piled on the bus, laughing and high-fiving each other, amazed at what they'd accomplished. And off we headed home to Wellesley.
What was that, Kathy? What'd you say? Yeah, absolutely. See why she has one name? She's a rock star. She's Abby. So hands on, ready up, people. If you ever need to know anything, you're like seconds from the most perilous situation in your life. Whatever the context is, you better shout, hands on, ready up. All right, thanks very much, Abby. We're going to bring Marianne Gucciardi up next, 1994.
I would like to be 1994, but I am 84. And first I want to say thank you for giving everybody the opportunity to speak today. I stand before you as not a lifelong athlete or someone who excelled at sports growing up. Athletics were not a central part of my life, and in college I wasn't on the field or on the court or in the library. And I really wasn't partying. But, and I am standing before you as someone who did most of my athletic requirements my senior year. And I didn't own a bathing suit, and I took swimming. Now I lost my spot, which happens when you're in class of 84. But I did learn later in life about the value of playing sports and the community that it leads to, because I spent many years in Hong Kong, and it was there in my 30s that I learned to play tennis. And I lived near a tennis facility where they had a round robin. It was Wednesday nights, Friday nights, all day Saturday, half a day Sunday. And so I took a few group lessons and I joined in. And my husband was traveling a lot at the time, so it was really useful for me because I was alone a lot. This was the time before my children came along, and I was looking for community that was not expatriate, but expatriate and local, and this was perfect. It was a huge, diverse community with every level, and it really taught me the importance of sports as a way to not just join in, not just to find people, because they might not have been exactly my people, but they were my people, but also to let go of expectations about how good you could be, because being your best is just being your best. It's not about being the best, even though we all went to Wellesley and we want to be the best. And it was about mutual encouragement and support, even if people don't know you. You don't need to run a marathon, although I would like to do that, to have people cheer for you and want the best for you. And it really means that that sense of connection without the pressure to conform really means you can still serve underhanded. So, thank you for laughing at my tennis joke. Fast forward a few years, and COVID really hit us hard, and my dad was unwell, and I fell out of exercising. But I never fell out of my Wellesley community. And I was on the phone with Janet Krevlin and telling her how tired I was. My dad had died about a year ago. I was very, very tired. And so she said, "Oh, come on this bike trip with us." Well, if I didn't own a bathing suit, not owning a bike was not going to deter me. So I said yes, and I went with her and Sally Saltzbart and Kim Marsh and a bunch of other Wellesley people, and I wish I had included that photo with everybody, but we went to Slovenia and Austria and Italy, and we had a great time. And I learned some very important lessons there. I am always the first one to say yes. I will climb every mountain and forge every creek. But that, for me, was something new and different, and I wasn't going to say yes, but I did. And it was super relaxing. It was just the break I needed, with just the type of people that I needed to be with in that moment. And it was important because it wasn't just the beautiful physical beauty of the scenery, because Wellesley is like that too. I could have just come here and looked at the lake. I have always had tremendous respite here. As both a student and as an alum. But it was an additional lesson about not conforming and about not feeling like you had to fit in to belong. that was a group that was already formed. There were 9 people who had all played sports together, and they really were close, a tight-knit group. And there I was as the person who really didn't know anybody, belonging. Fitting in? No. I was on an e-bike. Don't let me mislead you. I may have been climbing every mountain, but it was on turbo. And even downhill, I was on turbo. And with the brakes on, too. But that was like so mentally relaxing. It wasn't just physically relaxing. And I really, it got me out of a serious funk and a fog that I had been in that moment and for that entire year. And so I am forever grateful for that, because if I hadn't had that invitation, if I hadn't been on that call, if I hadn't been to Wellesley, I wouldn't have been in that moment to say yes and have had that kind of healing happen. And so when you think about the athletic identity, because I spent a lot of time right now thinking about identity, are we athletes, or is my athletic identity a healthy identity? Mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, physically healthy. And so as I look back at last summer, and I look forward to this summer when we're all going to the Galapagos, another trip I wanted to say no to, but you know, I have that little wristband thing now, and I do own a bathing suit. I think about the humor and the fun that we had as also a part of a healthy identity, and the community that was so important to that trip. And so I thank you, and I thank all of you, and I thank the Big W, because without her, where would we all be?
Thank you, Marianne. That's lovely. As my soccer coach, Suki McGraw, would say, that was lovely. All right, so the second to last speaker is going to be Vanessa Johnson, class of 1990.
90 in the house. All this talk of wellness, and I'm bringing a beer up to the stage. There's a reason for that. Oh, yeah, you don't really have to move the pictures on, because I had no idea they were going to be up like that, so it's okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, the hair. Okay. So first, because I'm second to last and you're all like amazing that you're still here, stomp. We got to wake up a little bit. Okay, little stomping. All right, raise the energy. Okay, and now I'm going to philosophize and put you to sleep again. Here it goes. So I'm Vanessa Pinto Johnson. I'm class of 90, as you heard, and I was an accidental Wellesley student. This title, of course, is stolen from a movie from 1988 that I never saw, but the word accidental is really important here, because we think about accidents as being kind of random luck, born of chaos theory, maybe? Things we scientists have to control for, right, to determine truth. But what of fate? What of serendipity, quantum entanglement, destiny? Are there forces that we can't measure or clearly define, but they act in our lives with a power that we feel and move us? Maybe it's from the same source as the placebo effect that we have to control for in clinical trials. I honestly don't know. But my own story makes me question all of it, and I think you might as well. So, my history in soccer starts with an accident. Not my own, but a kid I had never met who couldn't play in the youth soccer team that was in my small town in Southern California at the time. And so I was asked to play. I was the son my father wanted, a catcher in softball, close to the baseball that he loved, of course, but we knew nothing about soccer. So I played, and then I played, and I fell in love. I don't remember when I started playing keeper exactly, but it felt right. At 8 years old, I had absolutely no idea that being a keeper held the keys to my future, how random my beginning in soccer actually was. So let's consider how I got to Wellesley. I was from a middle-class family, classic Gen X, latchkey kid, feral children of divorced parents. And I was a first gen, as it's now called, right? Didn't have it then. I certainly had privilege of being white and straight, or so I thought at the time, and in a great public school. But Wellesley? Come on, that was a pipe dream of my New England-raised mother who had some fascination with the Seven Sisters. At college night, all seven were lumped into the same table because no one had really ever heard of them. And at one point we walked up and one of my weller-off classmates asked where she could board her horse in one of the Seven Sisters. The answer, of course, is actually Smith. We'll come back to that. But really, right there, we should have just walked away. I mean, there was no way, right? So we had driven through campus once. I have family on the East Coast. But we never even got out of the car. It was really pretty. I didn't really see Lake Waban, but we at least had driven through. I had a friend from high school who was going here. But I really didn't think I had a chance in hell of getting in. And I couldn't go to afford, I couldn't come out to see the campus. I couldn't come out here to interview. So I interviewed with an alum out in LA. And then I got this phone call. It was Bill. Oh, Bill. All right. Bill Merrill was a Wellesley soccer coach after Suki. He came in the first year that, as I was a freshman. And I can tell this story now because he is no longer with us, and so there's going to be no liability, I think. So we're good. Covered. All right, he was living in Southern California as well. And he must have seen that I had been a keeper on my state championship high school team. Of course, I didn't tell anyone that I was on the bench for the whole season, but, no one needs to know that. So he wanted to have a tryout with me. My God. So we met at a local community college field, and he put me, through my paces in the goal. And I remember this odd feeling, like perhaps this was the most important tryout of my life. So I threw myself around in a way that I felt for days afterwards. So when we were done, he popped his hatchback in the parking lot and offered me a beer. It was a Bud Light. This is what I drink now. Okay. Now, mind you, I was 17 years old. But it somehow felt important, like I had passed the test. So I drank beer with Bill, and like the country song says, ain't it funny what one beer can turn into? Well, in my case, it was a ticket to a future that I could feel, but I actually couldn't imagine yet. This and the honest-to-God fact that I wrote my admission essay about who we'd want to be apprenticed to. You guys remember that? Living or Dead, Fictional or Non, right? About Obi-Wan Kenobi. I kid you not. And I was going to be a Jedi Knight. Okay, and I imagine some admissions woman, like at midnight, must have had like 20 Mother Teresas, right? And then they get my essay, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they think, oh, well, at least the girl's different, let her in. So those two things, along with an incredible financial aid package, let's hear it for Needs Blind Admissions, that I still can't believe, I was on my way. All right, so I showed up for preseason by myself. I was picked up by my mother's cousin, who I'd met once, and drive the wrong way. Anyway, it was a long story. She went through the actual way that you walk into campus. She had driven her car across that first, but then by the time she got me, she actually dropped me at the entrance to Tower, where I was supposed to be. So I actually stepped out in front of Tower Hall as my first step on campus. I had actually never set foot, and there I was for preseason, and I looked like that. With very big hair, as you can see. So I knew I was not in Kansas anymore the minute I walked into the Tower Court living room, which was the first thing I saw. I thought, oh boy, There was no Hogwarts yet, but yeah, it's kind of like that. So I was dressed in a very 80s outfit that, featured rhinestones and the whole bit. And when I walked on the floor where all the soccer players were, and of course they're all in the hallway in their sweats, and they're looking at my very big post-mullet perm, as is evidence there. And they looked at me like I was from another planet. No, just California, but kind of same thing. But I was utterly, totally lost. But then there was Grandma Winnie at the front desk of the athletics center, right? Who would smile at us no matter what we were dropping off to her, that poor thing. And then there was my good friend and doctor now, Ellen Rich, who was my captain and my big sis. Boosh, I hope he's listening, my sweeper and my protector, and so many other people that I can't name here. But of course, there was also Mom, Connie Bauman. Head athletic trainer. So I found my sense of home here, and even a work-study job as a student trainer, gaining knowledge that I actually use to this day, which is more than I can say for organic chemistry. The sports center was actually a safe place that I desperately needed, and with that, and some bluster and bravado and a fair amount of tough love, I found my way, eventually. Playing keeper is a lot like the career I would eventually choose. You have to be fierce, attentive, willing to be the last line of defense, and if things were going well, you have to actually fight distraction, or that inattention would be your downfall. So I was told after my first year that I actually wouldn't make it to medical school. Connie was not my advisor, by the way. But something about facing insurmountable odds on the soccer field and pulling some kind of meaning from it, win or lose, told me otherwise. So I got a scholarship to do an unpaid internship, drove my car across country with Vicky Vettigren, another soccer player, and a class of 1989, who I think is reuniting here today. And I ended up working actually at the Dana-Farber. I became apprenticed to an absolutely formidable female oncologic surgical resident. Apprentice, remember? Again, fate. Whom decades later, I kid you not, can't make this up, is now the head of the frickin' NIH, appointed by Biden. The Wellesley effect. How did that happen? How does that happen? I'm sorry, that's crazy, okay? So, and she was an unbelievable mentor to me as well. So the Wellesley effect is real. I was given the chance to continue in her lab during my senior year, but I would have to give up soccer. I don't know if you guys remember this. So just like the beer with Bill, I somehow knew that this was my shot. I also recognized that the junior keeper underneath me was better than I was. And being the senior, John, the upcoming soccer coach and a nice guy, was going to play me anyway. So I hung up my gloves, put on a lab coat, and that was that. But of course it wasn't. Accidents again. Actually, the keeper had a random health event, was unable to play the last games of the season, and I was asked back. Our last home game was against Smith, of course, who we had failed to beat during my tenure up to that point, but not for lack of furiously trying one serious rivalry, as you all know. It was a beautiful, beautiful fall day. The field was perfect, and we went out there against the odds, everyone there supporting us, Chip Case, God rest. And we played to a shutout win. I actually, honest to God, fell to the ground, and I kissed the field when it was done. I really did. But the drumbeat of that fulfilled destiny on that day, I can still feel in my ears when I look at that field. Full circle of love and belief, honestly beyond rationality. So I wrote my med school essay about being a keeper. And as a cancer doctor and hospice physician now, I am truly the last line of defense. But I am useless without my team. And I can say it's held up over time, that essay. Unlike my mullet. but maybe a little bit like being a Jedi. So I, honest to God, wouldn't be who I am, be able to do what I do today, without having found my home here at Wellesley and in my chosen family in the Wellesley Athletic Program, 50 years strong, and that's no accident.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Vanessa. Your prop brought to mind something we all learned in grade school. Like, if you're going to bring out a beer, you got one for everybody? Yeah, well, am I right? It's kind of basic. Krev asked to, after I'd done a lot of the coaching, to suggest the order. And as everybody, the order of speakers tonight, as you can tell, this murderer's row of people presenting and moving everyone. They're inspiring, encouraging family and personal stories. The order kind of said itself. But I especially wanted our next speaker to go last. And you're going to hear why. Joanne Paul is my shiro, my personal shiro. Joanne, would you come forward?
I'm going to stick to my 5 to 6 minutes. I want to thank you all for hanging in there. Because really what we want to get to is the dance floor, right? It all began in mid-August of 1980. I was equipped with a shiny master's degree in physical education administration from Indiana University in Bloomington. I was just 25, and the rising seniors on the Wellesley tennis team were only 3 or 4 years younger. I was one of 5 new faculty, head coaches from all over the country we came, that were hired very late that summer. We were quite a team of characters and dedication. Some names you may remember: Roxanne Dale, Betsy Cooper, Jeff Diekema, swimming, anybody? Susan Ford. We were a tight cohort and had so much fun together, and at times we were a lot to handle for the senior faculty. So like many of you during the pandemic, most of us former coaches had reunited on monthly Zoom calls, along with former head of athletic trainer Connie Bauman and former director of athletics Bridget, catching up on each other's lives. Suki was on those calls, Susan was on those calls. It has been so fun. There are many valuable lessons you learn being involved in sports, like teamwork, like discipline, like time management, mental toughness, anticipation, compassion, and resiliency. There are many more qualities of character, but these are just a few. In February of 2021, after experiencing shortness of breath, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. The cancer having moved from my right breast, leaking into my right lung, which is why I couldn't breathe. I know I will never be cured, but it is treatable and manageable, I hope, for quite some time. It was a huge shock, but I didn't react with anxiety or fear. It was mostly, okay, what do we do next? I bring this up because I've been told that I've been approaching and dealing with my diagnosis like an athlete. At first, I sat back and wondered what dealing with my diagnosis like an athlete meant. Was that good? Was that bad? But it struck me it's the only way I know how to deal with the uncomfortable and tough situations. When it gets hard, you push through. You don't feel sorry for yourself or the situation. When it gets hard, you push through, you don't give in, and you keep trying and giving your all to the task at hand. It's not easy, but I've trained my whole life to be this way. You don't have time to sulk or cry about it. You figure it out and you move forward. That point is over. Get ready for the next serve. Well, this isn't a game, and I didn't choose to be on this team. It's always humbling to walk into a cancer center. For me, initially Dana-Farber in Boston, and now at the University of Minnesota, where, by the way, my chosen oncologist was a referral from our own Martha Goldberg Aronson. Everyone is there for a reason, and that reason is cancer. It doesn't discriminate, as there are patients of all ages, races, and countries entering the same doors for the very same reason. However, each journey is different. Either they have been a patient for a while, getting treatment, it is their first time there, or they are about to receive some sort of test results. Some of you may be familiar with CaringBridge, the free online tool for sharing health updates. This has been just one of my support systems and reminds me of the people at Wellesley, and in particular Wellesley Athletics, that play an important role in my life. Here's a smattering of my followers. 11 Wellesley former tennis players. 2 of them are here tonight. Barbara Deaton McManus and Martha Goldberg Aronson. 6 other alums from Wellesley that were not tennis players. Many of my physical education and athletics colleagues, my undergraduate tennis coach and my undergraduate doubles partner, the MIT tennis coach and 4 of her former players, as well as 3 MIT athletic staff, the former tennis coaches at Smith College and Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. The reconnections with Wellesley College and the collegiate world of athletics are far-reaching and lasting. They are a key part of the hope I experience on this journey. Yes, the goal of an athlete is to win, but Pat Summitt, who was the head coach of the University of Tennessee Lady Vol basketball team for 38 seasons, had a quote that has stuck with me. She says, "Winning is fun, sure, but winning is not the point. Wanting to win is the point. Not giving up is the point. Never letting up is the point. Never being satisfied with what you've done is the point." So on behalf of my spouse, Wendy, and me, I want to say thank you. Thank you for following my blog on CaringBridge, following my journey, for staying in touch, giving me hope, and supporting us in my ongoing treatment of breast cancer. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to wrap because there's a lot of refreshments out there, and we've run a little long, but I think it was worth it, for one. To Joanne, I want to say your hopes are our hopes, and don't you ever forget that. She name-dropped a couple people. Betsy Cooper is here, Betsy, the rowing coach. And Martha Goldberg Aronson is here, and this is actually Martha. And Sarah Deaton is here, and Sarah Deaton is my Wellesley big sister. Yeah, I lived in the cellar of Severance, and she gave me a T-shirt. Barbara. She has a twin sister named Sarah, and it's late, and I got up at 6 o'clock this morning. But yeah. There you go. I should have her come up here and close this thing because I'm screwing up everything royally. But she is my Wellesley big sister, and she gave me a T-shirt that said, "I'm a cellar dweller," because we lived in the basement of Severance. My year, a record number of students accepted, and so they didn't have enough room, so we had triples. And some people lived in Nan's house. So anyway, that's not a sports story. That doesn't earn you the W. So thank you for coming. Thank you, Krev. Thank you, Sarah. And go enjoy some refreshments. And thank you, this spectacular panel. Yeah. I think this event will be back. They make you all seem like your lives are loafers, so get out and do some more athletics, move around, think about moving around. Thanks again. Enjoy your reunion.